was a soldier on duty in Kenya when he got a word that a group of armed men had taken over a building. Apparently, it was also a delicate hostage situation. Ray knew it was going to be dangerous, but he didn't let that stop him from getting the job done. He stood by the door while his squad mates took cover behind him. Then suddenly chaos broke loose. The bad guys inside started shooting at them through the door. The officer in charge gave Ray an order: hold off on the breach. But instead of following orders like a good little soldier, Ray did something incredible. He threw a flashbang into their hideout, toggled his aimbot, and rushed inside. He shot every last one of those bad guys with pinpoint precision before making his way up to find the hostage. Once there, the bad guy demanded a helicopter. Ray obliged. But if he was going to call one in, he needed a phone, so the guy helpfully pointed one out with the shotgun. With the hostage now safe for just a moment, Ray springs into action, whipping out his Glock and taking care of business with the hostage secured. Ray looks down and finds he is wounded. Darn, and he almost got the no damage taken achievement too. When Ray came home from his mission, he was ready to see his wife and told his fellow soldiers that right there was what they were fighting for. Yes, his wife specifically, and he was ready to embrace her. His wife was a beauty, and they immediately celebrated his return with her. The next morning, Ray woke up alone and confused. Relatable. He fell around in the bed until he found a note that said, "I'm going out for breakfast." Ray washed up in the bathroom, then heard something coming from outside. Armed men broke into his room and spotted Ray's reflection through the mirror. They rushed in, but he fooled them with the old bathroom mirror. Bamboozle Bunny, and said they all proceeded to fight in an awfully cut chaotic sequence. To cap it off, this guy punches Ray in the arm. It's not very effective. Then he stumbles out of his room in search of his wife, Gina. He bumps into an innocent-looking guy, but then gets all woozy and collapses. The now not-so-innocent guy looms over Ray holding a needle. When Ray awoke, he had no idea where he was. He just knew that his hands were tied behind his back, and the room he was in was not friendly for vegans. Then a man appeared at the back of the room, the same man. He dons a dripped-out outfit before dancing towards him. Smooth. The man asked him who told him about the hostages in his previous mission, but Ray stays silent. So to up the stakes a little, the man brings out today's guest, Ray's wife. Now Ray is a bit more talkative, but still has nothing substantial to say. He claims he doesn't know, and just goes where his supporters tell him to. The man ends up believing. Ray, relief wash over his face. But then, never mind, rip in peace. Ray is livid. But then he too goes to sleep forever until he wakes up again in a futuristic lab. Ray's eyes fluttered open, and he was overwhelmed with the unnecessary but cool lighting scheme of the room. He spots a woman, and her chest is more eye-catching than the usual variety. Later, Ray fully comes to and is visited by Dr. Emil Harding, and his assistant is the woman he already met, Katie. The doctor breaks the news Ray died, but they brought him back to suffer more in the land of the living. He doesn't believe it for a second, but when asked what his name is, he can't even remember. Dr. Emil is giving Ray a tour of the facility. Here, they create robotic tech for the military, like bionic limbs and exoskeletons. He gestures to a room full of machines that look like they belong in a laboratory from a sci-fi movie. Oh wait, Dr. Harding states that Ray is the greatest creation yet. Then he cuts Ray's hand with his cable, but only to demonstrate the remarkable capabilities of the nanites inside him. Not gonna lie, he had us in the first half. Ray looks down at his hand in awe. The nanites move around like insects, working swiftly to repair his skin. Not so much as a scar is left behind, but his emotional damage is still hurting. Dr. Harding implores him to forget the past and consider the possibilities of the future. In his case, he lost his arm to cancer, and with it his career in tennis, so he invented robo-arms instead, which is way cooler. Right after Dr. Harding takes Ready to meet some other enhanced soldiers who are just as weird as he is. One of them has bionic eyes on his chest, and the other has bionic legs that help him run really fast. And of course there's Katie, who can breathe through a hole in her chest. Weird flex. But okay, instead of feeling inspired by all this, Ray comments that they're all a bunch of wounded soldiers, damaged goods. He goes up to his room to sleep and has nightmares about his wife. The memories are slowly coming back. Ray wakes up and decides to channel his frustration into something productive. He goes to the gym to blow off some steam, but instead of punching a bag, he punches through it. He's pretty proud of this new ability, but then realizes that he can't really use it effectively in a boxing match because you kill the other guy. So instead he tries out his new power on a concrete column, using it as a punching bag. The concrete begins cracking under the force of his blows. Ray busts out some more combos that doesn't look very safe. Ray finishes with a fantastic set of curls for the females. And just on cue, Katie swims next to him and does underwater karate, which looks nice but is not really useful in fighting. After drinking, a low pulsing sound fills the room. Katie grimly stares at a device on the wall, and Ray starts having vivid flashbacks of his wife and starts speaking the same words he did when he lost her. He snaps out of it, but now he knows what he needs to do. escape the facility and seek revenge on Martin X, the man who clapped his wife. But Dr. Harding would not let him. "Your body belongs to me," he told Ray through his built-in brain Bluetooth. An interesting choice of words. Ray says, "No, I do what I want." And with that, he used his cybernetic abilities to hack Martin's location, and then he stole a plane, and then he downloaded the flight manual to his brain, and finally he set this truck on a collision course for Martin for no reason other than it looks cool. The truck was filled with flour. Ray emerges and fires at Martin's car. The bulletproof glass is unfazed, but Ray is not. He gets popped and collapses to the ground, but not before placing a thermite canister in the car. It melts into the engine, disabling it. Ray recovers with his nanobot powers and bestows a beat down on Martin's henchman. He bends this guy's arms backwards, and even Martin is like, "Whoa, that wasn't called for." Meanwhile, Barton calls his buddy, and it seems like they were expecting this attack. As prepared as they were, they still underestimated the power of family. Ray returns from his vengeance mission and is picked up by his fellow warriors. He tells Katie he did what he had to do and is done. Katie claims she is too confused. Ray asks. Dalton blows up Ray's car, and they all walk away from the explosion without looking back because it is cooler that way. We cut to the lab, where Ray tries to get up, but has his motor functions disabled. Dalton proceeds with an expositional dump about the true nature of this arrangement. You see, he hates having to be Ray's babysitter, but this is always his favorite part. He leans into Ray's ear and tells him that Gina is alive. Ray cannot respond, but his eyes. Dalton says they use Ray's vengeance to kill their targets. He is basically a deadly wind-up toy soldier as his memory is wiped. We pan over to Dr. Harding, and he confronts Katie for going off script when she said, "I am done too." We learn that if she leaves this facility, her breathing gets turned off. She is reminded that this is the choice she made, but she just wishes Ray had a choice too. Katie is dismissed. Ray escapes again to kill his latest victim, Nick Barris. Dr. Harding and the others act out their lines. But Dalton gets tired of the repetition, representing the audience, speeding things up. Ray heads to Nick's fortified compound and plays dead. Then they let him in. Nick speaks with his tech guy, Wiggins, who has a device that will save the day, but Nick's not a great boss. He kidnapped Wiggins and forced him to work for free, so Wiggins is sparse on details on how to use the device, which we soon learn as an EMP ray closes in, but the bullets are no match for his Ray kills Nick as he waits for the EMP to power up. Dr. Harding is glad the alarm did not go off and his last challenge has been overcome, or has it? The EMP goes boom, the lights go out for a mile, and Wiggins zaps Ray back to life. I am sorry, as Wiggins explains that he is on his side. Ray recalls all the males who cheered for his wife and realizes that Dr. Harding is his ultimate goal. Ray sends Wiggins a sample of nanite to reverse engineer, and then he gets in a vintage whip that cannot be followed. He finds his wife and greets her, but his reality is gone. Gina went on and had her own family, so Ray disappeared bewildered. Ray leaves and starts driving through the city when an armored truck rams into him. So much for no tracking. The super soldier friends have turned to foes and hunted him down. Well, actually, Dalton kind of always was a jerk. Dalton takes off with great speed while Ivy uses drones to get a bird's eye view. Once Dalton catches up, he blasts Ray with anti-nane bullets that turn Ray's beefy python arm into a little noodle in retaliation. Katie submits that she makes it over to Wiggins' hideout and knocks him out with sleeping smoke. Then proves equality is real by beating up these grown men back in the lab. Ray chats with Dr. Harding in a virtual construct, and then we get a solid 30-second flex of this movie's VFX budget. Very cool. Now that all of Harding's targets are gone, Ray will have his nanites extracted and sold off, while Katie returns from her mission and Dalton rubs it in that they caught. She invades Ray's fake memories, discloses the reality, and signals Wiggins to take over. She kept them to herself. He fights the other man and wins, freeing her. Ray headed for Harding, but Dalton and Tin have something to say about it. They gear up with their new drip and continue with an anxiety-inducing elevator battle till they beat Ray and he falls off the building, just joking. Ray and Tibbs fall again as Dalton slides down with his bionic arms and breaks the lines. Tibbs begs him to stop, but all he cares about is taking Ray down. Sadly, Tibbs falls due to gravity. Then Ray defies gravity and launches himself towards Dalton, sending them both plummeting down during freefall. Ray powers up by overclocking his nanites, loses his cool tan, and gets some RGB lighting in his chest instead. Then he turbo punches Dalton, rip in peace. Ray's vitals are surging through the roof. so Wiggins urges him to retreat, but he has unfinished business. Ray keeps marching, so Harding throws a grenade at him, scattering the nanites. As Harding prepares to fire again, Ray's cloud of nanites dismantles the round before it reaches him, but he is out of juice. Harding claims victory, but not so fast. Ray's holding the explosive, he drops it, and it lands perfectly. Imagine if it did not land perfectly. He definitely does not survive this. On the contrary, days later, Ray wakes up next to Wiggins, completely healed and memory intact. It turns out they managed to bring him back to life for a second time using the nanites and even added some bonus stamina points. This time, having completed the main quest and reached max level,